Well, Landon, it is awesome to be with you. I think the reason you maybe said yes, if I'm, being honest, is, you're a twin. My brothers are twins. I delivered twins.
Did
So
you?
I'm
I
sort
didn't
of
know
thinking
that.
that I did. Yes, we have that are
Do you
older now,
have
but yeah,
boy, girl, 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 boy,
three
boy?
girls, but our twins are two girls. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
so awesome.
it
Yeah,
is.
it
And
was.
you too. Your twin is. You're close.
Yeah, it was pretty fun growing up with a twin. My mom tells the story that the doctor, she was huge. She's 4'11", and she was huge.
Oh wow.
And the doctor said, "Do you have twins in the family?" And she said, "No." And he said, "Well, you do now." And
Oh,
she
how
was
fun.
like, "What am I gonna do?" So yeah, she made it work.
Yeah, she sure did. You ain't kidding. She made it work. So, Landon, I kind of want to start here. I mean, you proved it, right? You accomplished so many incredible things. You pursued what you did wholeheartedly, but yet it still felt like you were chasing something very different than a
Mhm.
soccer ball. Tell me why at some level that chase felt so prevalent inside of you after having
Mhm.
accomplished so much
So
on the field.
visceral. Well, only through lots and lots of therapy did I realize what I was chasing. And what I was chasing
Mm,
was the affection, acceptance, appreciation of my father, who was not around
mm,
when I was growing up. And I've realized as I've gotten older that that story is more common with people who are successful. It's hard to describe the level of desire and need for that affection. And
mhm,
it came out for me through soccer. And so when I remember scoring a goal as an 8-year old and everybody on the sideline cheering and chanting, and I felt accepted. And I felt like this was so special for me. And what I
mhm.
really wanted was that from my dad, that I didn't have. And so I just kept chasing it. And it was almost insatiable. No matter where I went, what level I went to, I needed more and more of it.
What, and it's interesting what you share that you find that to be so common with people who have achieved a lot.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about what you've learned as you've unpacked that in so many ways and written an incredible memoir. But it is so common, so sadly so common. What have you learned about that as it relates to what appears to be so common with people that aren't professional athletes too?
Yeah. So the way I describe it is that my story is both very, very unique in that I grew up with a single mom in a 900 square foot home, very poor by American standards. And through all of that, achieved what I achieved. But sadly, Molly, the story is very common, and that
Mm-hmm.
is many people who grow up either without a parent in their life, people who grow up as a single parent, people who have to navigate that world, growing up very poor in this country. That
Mm-hmm.
is also sadly a very common story. And so, what I've unpacked is that there's nothing I can teach my kids that is going to replicate what I was searching for. I can't teach the grit into them and the desire
Mm-hmm.
to achieve at that level. I had it
Mm-hmm.
because I kind of had to. I was chasing it for something much
Mm-hmm.
deeper. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
substitute for that. There's no amount of practice hours that can compete with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it is so interesting, right? Because I think we all go so hard in life, don't we, Landon? And then it's so interesting that we don't ever pull back and disconnect
Mm,
what we do with who we are. And it's sort of
hmm.
when that jersey comes off the back, who's that guy underneath number 10, right? Like
That's right.
who is that person? And why do you think it feels so? Because I've heard of this, right? And it breaks my heart, truly. And that's why I do love your book, because it feels so empty when you get there, whatever
Yeah.
there is. Why do you think it is so common that that pursuit of a thing doesn't fill us up, but yet we know that as human beings, we want to be the best version of ourselves and we want to reach our potential. So how do we thread that needle? Because it feels like a tightrope.
It's really well said. It will never be satiated. I tell my wife now, like, I achieved at the highest level that I could achieve in this country. And I still have, I'll do things in my day-to-day life where I'm seeking attention, right? And I'm a 43-year-old man with 3 beautiful children. I'm married. I have a great life. What am I still seeking? Why is that? Why do I need that? And that is part of the environment and what I grew up in. And so that will always be there. The key to it for me is that awareness. The faster that awareness comes, the better, so that I don't go a week acting that way and then go, oh my God, that was about my dad, not about my kid. And the faster we can find that awareness, the better. And through lots of therapy and meditation, I was able to find that. And it's never going to be perfect. It's never going to be what I wanted, which was my dad around growing up. But it is better, and there is now awareness around it so that I can manage it.
What do you say to people when they say, well, gosh, would you have done all these things as a soccer player if you hadn't had that internal drive that was compromising for something? Isn't that interesting? No. But then
I don't think I would have. Right.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, do I regret?
What you've done as a player, because wow, I mean, it's pretty incredible, right?
Right. It's a great question, actually. I actually never thought of it that way. Would I give it all up to have a real relationship with my dad growing up? Oof, that's a really good question. I probably would give it up, to be honest. Because I've seen the knock-on effects over time. However, I'm really grateful that in my dad's last 12 or so years of his life, he and I had a phenomenal relationship. A really, really, the relationship I wanted my whole life. But I am grateful because I meet many people whose parent ends up passing away, and they go, I wish I would have forgiven her, or I wish I would have forgiven him. I wish I would have just let that go. And I was able to let that go, and he was able to become a much different person. And because of that, we had an incredible relationship at the end. But I do wish it had been forever. I do.
Sure. You know, it's, as I think about that sort of tension, if you will, that you navigated, and probably right that you still do. And I sort of rewind Landon Donovan, the soccer player, who's got World Cups and MLS championships, and I mean, an American hero, right, in so many ways. I mean, I think the thing that really struck me is that MLS renamed the MVP in your honor. I mean, that is just like mind-blowing, right? And but not through the lens of what we're unpacking and what we've talked about. But when did that facade, if that word is appropriate, first crumble for you?
Great question. So my entire identity was around being a soccer player. Everything I knew was about, I mean, and to this day, most people know me as a soccer player, and that's what I meant. And that is selfishly part of the reason to write a book. I've always enjoyed making myself human. And I think we're getting past the point where we put people in the public eye on a pedestal all the time, but that still exists. So I've always enjoyed that part of it, and being human and relating with people. And it's probably selfishly because I want them to accept me, Landon, not Landon Donovan. And hence the name of the book is Landon, because as the author who wrote it with me, Ryan Berman, did a really good job of articulating, there is Landon Donovan, who was fierce and competitive and fiery and nasty and had this insatiable desire to succeed. But the real Landon is not that at all. The real Landon is soft and sensitive and emotional and compassionate. And so to your question, when did that crumble? After the 2006 World Cup, I had a really poor World Cup, and the team had a really poor World Cup. And that had been on the back of the 2002 World Cup, where I was named the best young player of the tournament, which is essentially the best young player in the world at that time.
Right.
So I come
Right.
off that
Right.
high and then have this incredible low in 2006. And after that, when I came home, reading these horrible headlines and learning of people criticizing me justifiably for the first time, I got my identity and my ego were shattered for the first time. And I had about a 2 week period where I was severely, severely depressed because of it. And most people who are in this walk of life in the public eye, if you have a setback, it's a setback and it's a struggle and whatever, but you get on with it. And I wasn't
Right.
able to. And the reason why is because it was my entire identity. Everything I knew was wrapped up in this. And so when I failed, all of me failed, not just the soccer side of me. And so thank God during that time, I had started going to therapy and I started to unpack all of that and realize that a few things. One, I was never going to let myself down competitively soccer wise that way again because I didn't want to feel this way again.
Right.
But two, I was going to separate Landon from Landon Donovan moving forward and make sure that I took care of Landon and that I started developing Landon as a human outside of the soccer player Landon so that I could make peace with all of it. And by the way, Molly, people who do one thing for a long time and then stop really struggle with this too.
Oh,
Whether you,
100%. In
it's
business,
really
sports,
difficult. That's right. And so if you're not developing another piece of yourself or the real you, it can be a real rude awakening. And so I'm very glad because at the end of my career, I was able to stop and walk away totally at peace, knowing that there was a real me behind it that was still going to live another 30, 40, 50, 60 years.
and so at when we're able to disconnect Landon and Landon Donovan, how and we think about that in terms of life and people in the world, how do we begin to recognize without a tragedy, right, that
Yeah.
we have a problem in this way? Like how do we see that? Because it is I think it's why athletes have such a hard time often retiring. Why, I mean, why we see this with executives sometimes when it's because they haven't separated the two.
Yeah.
But how do we see it before, before it's sort of a train wreck at some level when you're reading the paper and seeing what you saw, but for all of us?
It's a great question. Do you have an answer? I don't know. I mean, because oftentimes what happens, and you see this with people and all, people get cancer or they lose a loved one or something, they get in an accident or something happens where there's this change. And actually with my dad, he had cancer and I started to see a change in him. So I don't know. It is why I'm such a big advocate for therapy because not just cause, right? But everybody would benefit from learning about themselves, learning about their childhood, learning about why they do things the way they do. And if you could see those sort of landmines ahead of time, you know where not to step, right?
Sure.
Or if you do
Sure.
step there, you know what it's about and what's coming. And so I don't really have an answer other than trying to unpack it by talking to someone. I don't know, a therapist was good for me, but talking to a loved one or a friend or a family and try to start to understand it and realize it before we get there.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because I think in part it's probably just asking ourselves early and often in life what we are chasing. And I'm wondering if that's, I mean, I am far from Juliet, the incredible therapist that you had along the way. But I think if we ask ourselves that, we can make sure our pursuits are from the inside out, not the outside in.
Or healthy, yeah.
Yeah, because I think there's so much, and particularly in the world we live in today, with all of these external, storylines that are so often a narrative that we compare to, which is really just a highlight reel of someone else's life.
That's right.
Probably is very far from probably some of the things that are going on, and so I think, that curiosity from the inside out probably helps us, which therapy, to your point, does. To me, it's such an interesting tightrope when we think about pursuing the best version of ourselves every day, but under the auspice of aligning with our deepest values, right? Mm-hmm. With our real purpose in life. But I mean, we all have childhood, good and bad, and whether it was all good, I mean, we still have these frameworks that we have to unpack and learn from, and what drives us and what doesn't. And I'm curious, as a kid, soccer gave you emotionally certainly something that life didn't. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about little Landon, like the young Landon that was clearly, I mean, day after day, hour after hour, week after, a grinder, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think that was giving you beyond scoring goals?
Yeah. Well, one, something to do, because I had so much energy as a kid. And the reason my mom put me into soccer, my older half brother Josh played, but she just needed me to get energy out, because I see it with my oldest son now. He just has so much energy. And if you don't get it out, it's bad, right? Like then they turn to, or we turn to things that are not healthy and do crazy things. And so that was one. But as I look back, I can't say this for sure, but when you grow up in a family that has, on my mom's side for sure, a lot of mental health issues in her extended family, I can't help but look back and think that there was some depression inside me as a child. And so I was constantly doing and filling space all the time. And I think part of it is, because again, I see this with my oldest son, part of it is when there's a level of like intelligence and intellectual ability, it's hard for, especially in a boy, I see it different, my boy versus my daughter, it's hard for him to just sit and be okay sitting and relaxing. And it's really hard, and I'm trying to encourage that in him. It was impossible for me. I just had to be out doing something. And so my obsession became not just soccer, but sports. And I was outside all the time doing things, trying to get better. And I use the word insatiable because it was never enough. I wanted to get better and better and be better and do it and play and have fun. And there was a lot of joy in that. So I'm glad that was the outlet I chose. A lot of people choose unhealthy outlets, and it was unhealthy to an extent probably, but there are obviously worse things that you could put towards it. But that was it. It was just tied up in that.
In that. Yeah, I mean, no, it certainly can be. There's all kinds of unhealthy choices that we can make besides what you did, no question. When did soccer sort of stop being something that you did and started being who you were, right? Like, do you sort of remember these moments when you were like, whoa, tell me about that.
Well, at 13, 14, I went through puberty, and I became, instead of the kid who was like good at soccer but small and skinny and scrawny, I became like a young man. And now that's where my mostly my dad's athletic genes shone through. And I was like, I could run by people, and I was physically powerful, and all these things became like, oh, this is fun, but you're actually good at this now because of all the hours you've put in and this desire to be successful. And so right around my mid-teens is when it started to take shape. And I say soccer chose me. I didn't choose soccer because at that time, Molly, there was no Major League Soccer. There was no professional league in our country. I didn't watch TV, much less soccer on TV. I didn't know anything about the soccer world outside of what I was playing. I didn't know any teams or players. I didn't know any of it. Now my kid can name every player in the country. Right. I have no idea at that time. And so as I kept playing, and I was getting better and making the next team and the next team and the higher team and the better team. And eventually I ended up on the under 17 youth national team for the US. And we're traveling all over the world playing. And now scouts from Europe and people all over the place are seeing me. I'm completely oblivious to all of it. I just love that I get to go play soccer all the time. And next thing you know, I'm being approached by people who want to sign me as a pro.
Right, right. And so in that moment, did that begin to sort of bifurcate for you at some level? This is what I do versus I'm Landon, the little boy that just loves to get a lot of energy out and run around.
No, I mean, to our point earlier, that is what I was. That's who I was, right? I was I was the soccer player, right? And so, but when I would walk through school in high school, I had a soccer ball with me every day. Right, so I was dribbling through the hallways. So I was the soccer guy and the soccer player to those kids who knew nothing. And this was long before I was anything real.
Right.
But there was never a time until I went through that intense period after the 2006 World Cup and all the therapy where I wasn't Landon, the soccer player. That was who I was. That was my identity, and I loved it. And. It gave me the attention I was searching for.
Do you think that's what it was fundamentally, Landon, was attention? That, I mean, when you think about all of your conversations, all of your therapy, was it at the end of the day attention?
Well, you have kids, right? And
Sure.
My kids, like literally this morning, they're going to school and they're 10 years old, 8.5, and 7. And they're fighting over who can sit in the front seat next to mom on the way to school, right? And I'm thinking to myself, this is the dumbest thing ever. This is so dumb. But they just want your attention. Like it's just is what it is. And that's how kids, and I see it with other kids, and it's just the way they're built. I don't know, now that you're saying it, now I want to go unpack. Why is it? What is this crazy desire to have attention? And that is what it was. I mean, I was looking for my mom, my poor mom. My dad's not around. My mom is a special ed teacher making $40,000 a year trying to feed 3 children. Again, I told you we grew up in a 900 square foot house in Southern California. She didn't have time to do anything with us. So as much as I wanted my mom's attention too, she couldn't. She was going to work at 6:30 in the morning, coming home, making dinner, and then having to probably grade papers and do all the things and get us ready for bed. She didn't have time to hang out with us. So I was seeking attention from my dad, but probably my mom too, if I'm being honest. And that has never subsided. I'm aware of it now, but you're still always reaching for that.
What role do you think approval plays in that pursuit?
Massive. I mean, all these words they start to blend and tie together, right? Like it's your identity, but it's, you want approval, you want affection, you want attention from your parents. You just want a connection with them. And it makes me, of course, then think about my own kids and am I giving them enough of that? Am I doing enough of that? And because of the lack of attention I had from my dad, I was playing golf on Friday. And I'm sitting after we played golf, I'm sitting in the clubhouse and we're all hanging out with my friends. And one of my kids is home with our nanny. And I've been around my kids from day one a gazillion times more than my dad ever was, right?
Right.
I'm sitting there and I told the guys I was golfing with, I was like, guys, I have to tell you, I've spent so much time with my kids. I do so much with my kids. I'm such a part of their life. I feel guilty right now sitting here not being home with my kid. Like I cannot help it. I can feel it inside. And I texted my wife. I'm like, should I go home? I feel bad. I'm not with Slate. She's like, you're fine. He's fine. Right. He's happy. Just enjoy your golf but it's just there. It is there and that's never going to go away.
Yeah, that's interesting. But that awareness is huge. I'm thinking about the people around you, the Landon the boy, right? I'm thinking around the people around you when you're running around with a soccer ball, like you want to go to practice, you want to go compete, like you love you appear to love this sport. Is there anything that anyone maybe could have seen that was really going on that could have made things any different or sort of mitigated that emotional gap?
Question. Yeah, it's such a great question. There had to be, there are times with our children where you see something going on and they're acting irrationally for what's going on. Right. And I'll give you an example this morning. My kid, my middle boy, who's obsessed, loves soccer. His soccer team just got split basically in two. And this is a group of kids he's been with for 2 years, and they unnecessarily split this team up. And so some of the kids are going here and the other kids are going there. And he's devastated by it because he's like, I want to play with my friends. I want to be around my friends. So I walked in his room this morning and kind of like startled him and was trying to be playful with him. And he was like, get away, and started crying. And he was like scared and whatever. And I'm like, okay, that's an irrational reaction for what I did this morning. I was trying to be playful and like sneak up on him. So to answer your question, I know that's a bit tangential, but to answer your question,
that's interesting. Yeah.
There are signs, right? And if you're paying attention, you'll see signs. The problem is nobody was paying attention to us. We were raising ourselves basically because of what I said about my mom working and my dad being gone. So my guess is there were a lot of warning signs. In preschool, my mom tells this story where I bit a kid in the nose because I was so upset as my parents were going through a divorce at 2 years old. There are lots of signs. Your kids will show you. Are you aware enough? Are you present enough to see it? And then are you aware enough to say, okay, there's something going on here. Let's try to dissect this.
It was interesting. I mean, I think at one point you said early in the book, you felt almost claustrophobic. I think was maybe a term you used, or that was what I pulled out in your success. And I'm thinking about being the guy, right? Being that guy. What it cost you that no one ever could see from the outside, or what we all as parents now, as friends now, as aunts and uncles now, whatever it might be, what we can begin to maybe look for in service of helping close that emotional gap while still allowing someone to pursue goals. Because to me, that's sort of this interesting paradox at some level.
You're right. And as we're having this conversation, it's really interesting to hear you speak and to ask those questions because I've never thought of it that way. And I'm glad you're asking. How do we let them chase it and be like my middle son, he's obsessed with soccer. He just loves it. And how do you make sure it's done in a healthy way so that, statistically, he has almost a zero chance of ever doing anything other than playing in maybe high school and college, right? And I'm very aware of that. So how do you let him pursue that in a healthy way so that he still has an identity outside of it?
Right.
For when it doesn't eventually happen that he makes it to the national team like he wants to.
Yeah.
Right. And how do you, I don't know the answer, Molly. I don't know how you manage that. I think what I've tried to do, and people think I'm crazy because I'm the opposite of like the helicopter parent. And I just try to let them go and play and have fun to the point where my wife's like, you can still go outside and play with them. And I'm like, but they're going to think I'm pushing them too much. And she's like, no, just go play with them. It's fine. So I try to do it in that way. But then at some point, are you also underselling or are you not allowing them the full potential to achieve or the full ability to achieve what they so desperately want to achieve, right? And how do you manage that all? It's a great question, and it's challenging.
Yeah, and I think it is challenging because I think this sort of the way I sort of talk about it often is it's this human side of high performance, right? It's this human side of wanting to use all of the things that we have inside of us to be the best version of ourselves every single day, but have the ability to be content.
Yep.
And maybe that's the teeter-totter, right? To be content but not complacent. To be driven but not obsessed. To be ensuring that we're pursuing it from the inside out versus pursuing it because we want an outcome, which we know never
but Molly,
works well.
I guess the challenge would be, though, if you think about the most successful people over time, and like I don't psychoanalyze people, but if like Michael Jordan, right? There was clearly an obsession to be the best. I don't know where it came from. My guess is he didn't just like come out of the womb ready to be that way. My guess is something along the way was pushing him.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it is, but probably most of the most successful people who have changed the world and invented things and been sporting heroes and whatever. Yeah. There's probably been something there that's pushed them that was probably unhealthy if we really looked at it. So how do you juxtapose that and make sure that, we're also not giving that away?
Right.
Because there's been a lot of achievement probably through that.
100%, right? And I wonder, I think to actually pursue something wholeheartedly, you will be wildly misaligned, wildly out of balance. Yeah. But I think what breaks my heart is the lack of awareness around the pursuit.
Agreed.
And so I think you can still pursue it wholeheartedly, but if you're aware of the misalignment and paying attention to it, and probably through curiosity and awareness, like you saw with your son. I mean, I don't know that a lot of parents would have picked up on that moment with your son, and it's so cool that you did, because I think you were able to see there was something underneath all of that that probably needed to be navigated, right?
Right.
But I love what you described. I mean, when I was a sports agent, Doc Rivers would go watch his son play, and his wife would be going nuts in the stands, yelling at the refs, and Doc's sitting there on his hands. And she's like, I can't believe you're not saying anything. I mean, that's a horrible call. But it's because I think the people that have gotten there know that it really isn't even about the horrible call or any of that, right? It's just a sandbox to help us in life. But
it's so funny you say that with my kids. What I always do is I bring a chair. I sit basically as far away as I can from all the parents, coaches, everyone, and all the parents on the team think I'm like, well, I am probably also just being antisocial, but they must think I hate them. I put in my ear pods so I can't hear a thing, listen to like meditate, and just watch my kids play. And it's so glorious. Like it is so fun. I don't get caught. And then I sit and I watch parents around and talk about an emotion or reaction that is not warranted for what's going on. I'll see like a 7-year-old score a goal, and I'll see grown men in their 40s jumping up and down, hugging each other like in this meaningless, stupid soccer game. And I'm thinking, this is probably a little deeper for you. Like maybe you need to check yourself here. It's not that not that important. Yeah.
I mean, I always used to say, right, like I wanted to get T-shirts made that parents wear that just says, "It was so fun to watch you play." And where do you want to go eat?
I'm so glad to hear you say that.
I mean, just get in the car and
Yeah, I don't know if you know this or read this, but my mom, it's the only thing she would ever say to me. She would sit at the end of the silence. She didn't know what she was watching. She didn't know a thing about soccer. So who is she to go talk? So every time I'd come off the field, she'd go, "I love watching you play." And it's so funny because I read an article. God, I have goosebumps now. I read an article probably 10 years ago where they have done so much research about this stuff. And this was a no-brainer to me. But of course, they have data and research and all this BS. And it was like, there's only one thing you should say to your kid after the game. And it's, "I love watching you play," right? And I'm like, yeah,
no
like
kidding.
That's pretty obvious, like, right. It's so true though. And even my kids are like, "I know you love watching me play," right? Like as they walk off the field,
awesome.
And I'm like, "Yes, I do. I do love watching you play."
Right. Totally.
Yeah. I love that.
No, and look, well, I mean, I think it's such a testament though that all parents can learn from is this. I mean, here you are given what you've achieved as a player, and your mom knew nothing about the game and just asked you where you wanted to eat and what fun it was to watch you play. And look at what you did. I mean, and I think you hear that really from anyone that's really, really gotten sort of to that level often, because it's you've got to want it the most, right? Certainly. You said that the piece and there's so many great things in the book, and you said peace only came when you really separated Landon, the player, from Landon, the person. And I'm just curious, like tactically, as I think about how you shifted your almost this transformation, right? From achievement as the identity to identity way beyond the achievement, way beyond the guy with the jersey and number. How did you actually like do that? Right? What were some of the maybe habits or rituals or practices that you began to lean into through years of therapy and reflection that helped you do that?
Number one, first and foremost, was meditation. And the impetus for starting therapy was I went with my ex-wife. She wanted to go to this like group meditation thing. And you can imagine if someone's sitting here listening to this and they've never contemplated meditation, and you're like, that is the most left field, dumb, woohoo, like new agey, whatever. That was me. I was like, what are you talking about? We're not going to a stupid meditation class. But eventually I was like, sure, why not? Let's go try it. And so we go to this class and sit down, and I start to learn how to meditate for the first time. But the bigger takeaway was the woman who was leading it was this like middle-aged Persian woman who just had this really like soft demeanor about her. And I was like, she's really interesting. And she felt very maternal to me, very much like my mom to me. And so my ex had started going to therapy, and she's like, I think you would benefit from this if you ever want to try it. And I don't know the exact day or time or whatever, but one day I was like, you know what, I'll try it. So long story short, there was therapy, but the therapy is the understanding and the learning and the peeling, the way she would describe it is peeling back the layers of the onion until you get to the real core of the onion. And all the other stuff on top is all the crap that happens to us in our life. But it's one thing to know all that intellectually.
Right.
And it's a totally different thing. In the moment, you're upset, you get crazy mad about something, and to have the awareness to go, okay, take a breath. It's not about that. It's about something deeper with your dad, or that happened to you. Like, just let that be, and let's watch that pass, and you're going to be okay. And the only way that, in my experience, the only way you get there is through meditation. And it doesn't have to, there are a gazillion ways to meditate. Wow. Some people go sit and look at a lake or look in their backyard at the fire, and that is their meditation and their space to do that. And for me, it's through my breath. But once you have that awareness, it doesn't leave either. You still have to practice and keep it going. But once you have that awareness, it's with you forever. And that, way more than anything else, completely changed my life.
Wow. So you started meditating, and so for somebody, right, like I have had I've heard it's incredible, like all that, and I'm like the person that you're describing that has a hard time stopping, right? And so, but you're creating this space for yourself to focus on your breath, to be fully present in the moment. When did the light bulb go off, or the switch go off, if you will? Like, and maybe it's not that overt, but that you went, wait a minute, this is helping me show up in moments differently and disconnect the Landon, the soccer player, with Landon, the guy, and the dad, and how did that happen?
And not only that, but it actually helped me in soccer, right? Because there are so many times in a sporting, they're so emotional. I always tell people, sports are so emotional, and they, as John Wooden said, like they reveal character, right? They don't show character, prove character. I don't know, but they reveal your character, and right. And so there are so many moments that are so emotional that you can react because the ref made a bad call, or a guy bumped you the wrong way, or you gave up a goal, or you scored a goal, and meditation allowed me to come right back down to like even keel immediately through like, okay, that's great. We scored a goal, but let's go. We got the next one, or we got the next moment, or the next. And you can say that. Sometimes coaches will say, next play, or let's move on, or whatever.
Right.
But when you actually physically, your body can physically do it and get yourself to focus on the next play, that is a game changer, like a total game changer. And so what I've learned over time is what meditation has done for me. Once you have the awareness, so through therapy and meditation, once you have the awareness, the question then becomes is, how fast are you going to get to that awareness and realization? And I'll give you an example. My kids, totally drove me crazy if they did this morning, right? And all of a sudden I like blew up on them and yelled at them, and it was not warranted. It was from something deeper, but whatever. Was I able, did it take me all day? And at night I sat in bed and went, you know what? That was about my dad. That was not about them.
Oh, interesting.
Or did it happen an hour later, but they're already at school? Or did it happen literally after it happened and I can go, you know what, Raven? I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled at you. That was not about you. That was about me, right? And so over time and practice, it starts to happen a lot faster. And let me give you one more story, Molly, that's in the book that I think is really important. So when in 2007, David Beckham came to the Galaxy. And when he came to the Galaxy, we were awful. I mean awful. Last place. And this guy was he was the captain of the English national team. He was playing for Real Madrid. He had played for Manchester United. This guy was a megastar and had always played on the best teams everywhere he went. And then he comes to this new league in this terrible team with, accommodations he's not used to, a setup that's well below what. And when things went bad, he sort of checked out a little bit, right? Which is totally normal and human. And for most of the guys on the team, they were like, whatever, I get it. Like he's upset. I would be upset too. Look, you're Beckham. Look what you came from, and now you're coming to this crap team or whatever. But it drove me crazy. Like it drove me crazy to a point where there was a reporter who was doing a book called The Beckham Experiment, Grant Wall, who sadly passed away 4 years ago. And during that time of him being around the team talking to us, I just vented to him and let out a lot of garbage about how I felt about David and that process. And through then the book comes out, there's, it's not good, right? This is one of the most famous people on the planet who has one of his teammates and other people talking poorly about him. So it becomes a big deal. And to David's immense credit and our coach's immense credit, we got through that and we talked through it and we eventually were successful and won. But the point of the story is, in therapy, I was talking to Juliet about this and I was saying, David, he's driving me crazy. I feel like he doesn't care. He came here, he knew what he was getting into, and I feel like he's checked out and he doesn't care. And she was like, who does that sound like, Landon? And it hit me and I'm like, oh shit. That's my dad. That's nothing. It's not David. That's my dad. Had kids. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he was getting into. And then he checked out and he left us and he was gone. And David was not that bad, but it triggered it in me. It's what it felt like to me. And I was like, oh shit. It has nothing to do with David. Nothing. Like this poor guy. Look what he came into. It has nothing to do with him. And so my point is, if I had had that awareness a day after it happened, none of the fallout would have happened with the book and all the drama and all that. It would have just been like, hey, you know what? I have compassion for him because this probably sucks, but this is about my dad, not about him.
And I love that part of the book. And you sort of looked at her and said, man, you're pretty good. You're pretty good at this.
You're good at this.
Therapy stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
She is.
Yeah, totally. And you sort of unpack that with David, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, and that part is a really important growth moment for me in my life because instead of just going to him and telling him, I did it through the worst way possible, which is publicly. And I was, Grant was almost like a therapist for me in that time where I could just vent to him. And of course, I knew it was going in the book. It had nothing to do with him, not his fault.
Right.
But it was like, just go to David and talk about it. But David was really gracious, and we sat down in a little room in our coach's office, and our coach brought us in the next day, and it was uncomfortable. Tons of media outside, and I just said, David, I'm really sorry. Like this should never have come out this way. I do feel the way I feel, and I should have just told you, and we should have got through it that way. And he said, look, it's not a problem. I get it. I understand. And let's move forward and make this thing good. And we did, and we won a lot.
Yeah, you sure did. No, you sure did. As I think about your transformation and that awareness with that David story is really incredible. Are there things now that you do consistently, Landon, that sort of helps, in addition to the meditation, which clearly appears to really unlock the clarity in the moments? Is there anything else that you've found helpful in really transitioning from this identity of you as someone who has achieved so much on the field to Landon, the dad and the husband and the father and the friend and all that? Like, is there anything?
I guess what I would say is I'm able to separate the two. And I don't want to, it's not like the Landon Donovan was a bad thing. Right.
Totally.
Like I live in an amazing house, amazing life. Right. So I don't want to say like, oh, we should just throw all that away, and life would have been so much better. But I try really hard to separate the two and know that. Like this year's a good example. This year, from now through July, is going to be crazy because the World Cup is coming here to America. People want to be close to it and connected to it. And all of our players, our current players, are playing everywhere. They don't have time to go do an appearance or make an appearance or do this or sign autographs. So they turn to former players, right? And so I now have an ability to be out there, promote myself, promote the book, make a lot of money, do all these things that are very good for me. But I know what that is. And I know it's not, don't want to call it fake, but it's Landon Donovan. And then when I'm home, I'm Landon, and I'm just Landon. Like there's none of that bleeds into it. And it's okay for me to lean into Landon Donovan and appreciate that, and appreciate the people who also appreciated that. And like connect with them and say, yeah, that goal against Algeria was amazing. And that's cool that you got to watch it with your grandpa. Right. And I want to lean into that. So I'm able to very clearly delineate and separate them.
Yeah, which is it's obviously been your journey, right? And I think it's so important for all of us, whether it's in business or in sports, in a world where there is so much gray now with these, with regards to the work-life sort of delineation. And so it's so hard, but yet so important to be able to separate those two.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's so often it's about intention and awareness, which you have. I'm curious, Landon, what do you wish was different about your story?
Yeah, it's hard to say that, right? Because you are where you are because of all the things that have happened. Right. Yeah, and
sure.
I mean, clearly, I wish my dad had been a part of my life growing up, right? Someone said to me the other day, this was so interesting, in the same golf conversation I was having, which means I'm glad I stayed there and didn't come home to my son for this.
Yeah.
He said, someone told me one time that he had no memories, he actually had no vivid memories of his childhood with his dad, but it's because his dad was around all the time. So there was no special moment I have tons. I have got 15 very vivid memories of hanging out with my dad. But that's because that's all there was.
Right.
There were no other, there was no just hanging
in a lifetime.
out. Right. There was no hanging out just watching a soccer game every Saturday morning. That didn't exist, right? So like I remember throwing a baseball with my dad when he lived in New Mexico. Like, why would I remember that? What does that have to do with
Right.
anything? Well, it was a big deal
Right.
to me, right? So I just wish in that weird way that I had less of those memories with my dad,
Yeah.
because that would have meant that he was around all the time.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. Well, your memoir is incredible, and we need to make it into
Thank
a
you.
movie. That's the next step. Man.
Okay.
Let's
Is
get
that
this
your
thing.
goal? Okay. That sounds fine.
That-
Who's going to play
if-
me?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you got it in you. I mean, let's go.
Oh,
You
me?
be you. Yeah.
I don't think so. I've had
No.
enough public persona issues. I don't need another Landon version.
Well, and you know what's so interesting listening to you talk is that I always find that people who achieve a lot early and young in life hold on so dearly to the people that knew them before they did.
Yeah, that's very true.
I see athletes marry the person that they dated before they ever
Totally.
did any. And professional people too, because you know that person was with you because you were Landon, not Landon
Yeah.
Donovan. And
That's right.
and I think we see it in business too, and which is okay, but I think those are the moments that I think we as people can watch for, can see as the people that love those people that find themselves in those moments, so that we can maybe just support them in continuing to create that delineation, because
Yeah.
clearly they're holding on to what they were before, maybe just a little bit.
Right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
What do you
well
think
said.
if you had one sort of piece of advice for people who are peak performers, who are pursuing better and also want to ensure they create tremendous alignment with who they are away from the achievements? What would be your one piece of advice?
I'm not an expert on any of this, right? But I think this happened to me for a few reasons recently. I think I'm 43, almost 44. When I turned 40, something changed where I just started to care less about outside stuff. My dad, this is crazy, this happened during this whole process. My dad passed away in December. So being there with him on his deathbed, right, as he's going, there's this realization that I started to do it, but it was ingrained more after this. You hear people often say, like when they get to the end of life, I wish I would have, I wish I would have, I wish I would have spent more time with my kids. I wish I would have and that is all true. The question I continually ask myself, especially with big decisions now, is when I'm on my deathbed, will this matter? And that's it. And like, it's a pretty easy way to go through life. It doesn't mean you're just like nonchalant and don't care about anything. But I think to myself, like, is this really going to matter? And sometimes the answer is, yeah, definitely. And so you better put your whole damn heart into that and like really be aware. Most of the time though, Molly, it's like, no, it's not going to matter one bit. Like, who cares? And it doesn't mean you're just like a horrible person and do whatever you want or whatever. But it's just it just kind of hit me. It was right around 40, and then it was ingrained watching my dad pass, and I was like, yeah, let's do what matters.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Which is probably what your wife's saying. Get out there in the backyard and go play, right?
Well, they're at school right now, but
So listen, I'm going to hit you with a couple quick rapid fire, and then we'll wrap. Okay. Does that sound good?
I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Yeah, super fun. No, super fun. Awesome conversation. So the last show you like binge watched.
We do very little binge watching in our house. We don't have a TV in our room, so we're pretty good about that. The last show we binge watched, although we don't do a lot of that, is it was called The Hunting Wives, which is this like, it's so gross. It's about a woman who moves from, I think it's like Boston to this little town in Texas, and it's just all this debauchery, and it's got like a Desperate Housewives feel, and there's there's just all this madness, but we loved it. It was juicy.
Oh, well. It sounds like it's got it all. Soccer goat, right? Like, and you can't. I mean, I guess you can say you, but you don't seem like the kind of guy that would say you. But
no, the soccer goat is Lionel Messi. You know, Molly, what's weird about Messi is, and I think people probably feel this or felt this way about Jordan. When you get to see it every week,
wow,
it loses its luster in some ways, and you don't realize how good he is. So like when Jordan was playing, I watched Jordan growing up, and you're like, wow, he's really good. And now after the fact that you see all these other people come, you're like, nobody was ever like him. And I just think getting to watch Lionel Messi in the flesh right now, I think he is absolutely a top 3 player of all time. In my opinion, he's the best player ever to play. And we get to watch him we get to watch him in Major League Soccer, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Every week. It's wild.
That's incredible. That's awesome.
It's wild.
That's your son's goat, or is it Daddy-O?
No, that's my older son loves Cristiano Ronaldo. My younger son loves Lionel Messi. So
I love it. So the World Cup's coming to Atlanta soon, which is where we're based.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious, who's the one player we should be watching?
Oh boy, there's a lot of players to watch. From the U.S. perspective, the star player is Christian Pulisic. The U.S. games are L.A., Seattle, L.A., and then TBD. I believe there's a semifinal in Atlanta. The second semi, I think, is in Atlanta. If you get a chance, I mean, people complain about ticket prices and all that, and I get it. But if you get a chance to go to a World Cup game, it's so much fun. It's like the biggest college football game with national pride added in. That's the best way to describe it.
Ooh,
and
cool.
You know when like you get Bama against Auburn, and it's just crazy and raucous, but you throw national pride on top of that, and it's a whole different level, and it's so fun.
Wow. It sounds almost like Olympic vibes.
Exactly. That's right.
I love it. So who or what is a game changer who inspires you, and why?
I am now drawn to people who, I want to say think differently, but I don't say it in a way that's like just different to be different. I'm really impressed with people now who are starting to understand deeply what's happening in this country to young men, for example, and the challenges we're having with young men, or the challenges we're having around social media and people who are diving into it and starting to change the conversation. You know, in Australia, they just banned social media, I think, until you're 16.
Yeah.
And so like people who are, and that's probably a group of people and a decision maker, but people who are really changing the conversation in that way really inspire me, because those are real life issues. And I'm a kind of, I really enjoy psychology of people. It's really interesting to me. And so seeing like what's happening with young men in our country and how we can change that, because it's gone downhill significantly,
it's
and how we do a better job of that, I think is really inspiring.
That is so cool, and I echo that. And as a mother of 3 daughters too, Landon, I mean, I think with where we are too, I mean, the confidence gap that I feel like we see in the world today is so significant. The comparison that happens that is irrational in so many ways, and the impact it has on our young kids is significant. So I love that you're putting energy toward that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Landon Donovan, this is so fun. I should say, actually, Landon, this is so fun, because this was more, like you said, this is a conversation about Landon, the head and the heart and the soul inside of that guy. And, oh, by the way, you happen to play soccer. Pretty good. Thanks so much for coming on. So fun.
I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Molly.